Hello everyone, welcome to my Jurrac Ryu-ge deck profile. I got first place at my 6 round local with a cut to top cut, which was where the other 2 rounds came in. The deck felt really good. Probably one of the best Ryu-ge builds I've ever tried. Like, it's to the point that I am back to considering this deck for Nats because God, it feels crazy. It feels really good. The Jurrac stuff fills in so many holes in the original Ryu-ge strategy, and it helps it deal with so many cards that are just auto loss conditions for this deck, which we'll get into it when we get into it. So first off, we'll start with our starters. We're on 3 Ryu-ge Rising, 3 Ryu-ge Warzone, 3 Sosai Ryu-ge Mistva, and 3 Melody of Awakening Dragon. These are all pretty standard. The only one I'm going to talk about differently is Ryu-ge Warzone, a card that I've played at various amounts. In this build, we're actually on a Dinosaur, Sea Serpent, or Worm strategy. So Warzone becomes a card that can just rota us into any of those, which is really important because our Jurrac combo completely plays around Droll and Lockbird, a card that has notoriously been miserable for Ryu-ge to deal with. Warzone, if you start with it, can always get you to that monster so that if you start with it, you don't lose to Droll, which is awesome. Beyond that, Warzone, being able to play Warzone at 3 makes Ryu-ge feel so much better than it does otherwise because it is a really stellar extender because a lot of people will just interrupt you on the Mistva, which means you can then punish them by just activating the Warzone, especially if they chose to pop the Mistva, since now it's in the extra deck, so effectively nothing changed. After that is 3 Tensai Ryu-ge Anva, 2 Tensai Ryu-ge Anva. This is a card. This is the one change I think I want to make. There's a card in this list I want to swap out for a 3rd copy of Anva. He carried all day. He was incredible. Going second, because I will say I lost every single die roll during the day, so I was going second every round. Anva was the king of it. Anva helped me push into boards really effectively, either by summoning himself and then popping cards, or by being summoned off Warzone and popping cards, and by insulating my combos from interaction, so my opponent had to play in really awkward ways. The card's unreal. He's never felt better. It really helps that this is a 50-card list, which is a departure from my usual 60-card lists. This list can actually get away with 50 cards because the Jurrac engine is pretty small, so you can get away with it. And that's why I think I do want to run 3 Anva, because with I'm just going to see Ryu-ge starters more often, so Anva feels alive a lot more often. So I'd love to see him a little more. Plus, having more is good for the grind game. After that is our Ryu-ge main deck guys. We're on 2 2 Emva, 2 Hakva, and 1 Kaiba, along with each of their corresponding realms, the Sea Spires, the Dino Domains, and the Wormwinds. So these are pretty standard ratios. The only interesting one I'm going to talk about is Kaiba, which serves a dual purpose of being the send for Jurrac Stego, which means you're usually not going to be getting into it with your Ryu-ge stuff. The only thing you sometimes do is sometimes you will go search Kaiba to get Dino Domains. That's like the only scenario where you'd really mess with it. But these were all really good. I didn't have an issue with them. Hakva specifically was fantastic all day, especially in the grind game, being able to get this guy into the banish, keep him there, and then just use him to just a big body you get every single turn really does just count longer and longer the game goes. Emva was probably the most underperforming one here, besides, I mean, you need to play Kaiba for the Jurrac combo to work, but Emva, the summon effect on Emva barely came up. I think it maybe came up once. So Ember was kind of on fraud watch this locals, but he's still my guy. He's still pretty good. And all the realms were solid all day. I played against Orcus twice, and that deck really struggles against Wyrmwind, so I really appreciated it. And then we're on one Ryu-ge End and one Ryu-ge Rivalry. Usually, I don't play the End in the main deck, but the reason I played both of these is because the whole payoff of the Jurrac engine is setting up 2 board wipes. However, if you board wipe yourself twice, you are left with just no follow-up whatsoever. So the reason we're on these cards is that if we board wipe ourselves twice, we can pop Anva, which will float into End. And then if we board wipe ourselves a second time, End will float into Rivalry, which does give us some amount of follow-up, because then we can go Rivalry, summon Anva, Anva pops a card, that triggers Mistva, so we can summon Mistva, pop some other cards, and then be in a decent position. So I did end up liking these a decent amount. They were good. I really appreciated having both. They both came up multiple times. Really liked being able to play both in this list, since I normally don't. Next is on to our Jurrac cards. So we'll start with the starters. We're on 3 Jurrac Stego and 3 Fossil Dig. Wish there was maybe one more searcher for Stego, because he's just so good. But if you don't know, because these cards are new, Jurrac Stego allows you to destroy a card you control, which is really nice because you can destroy something like an Anva to trigger its effect. You can destroy a card you control to then send a dinosaur from your deck to the grave, and then you can summon Jurracs from your deck, from your hand or deck, whose total levels equal the level of the dinosaur you sent. So what we will usually do is we will send Kaiba, which will then allow us to summon a level 9 Jurrac and a level 1 Jurrac, to then synchro into our level 10 synchro. So this card, 1-card combos into the level 10 synchro, which represents 3 interruptions on its own, which is really scary. And you can do that whole line under Droll. You can do that whole line under Lancia. You can do that whole line pretty effectively into something like a Perulia or a Meowls. The only card it really plays kind of poorly into is Fua, but even under Fua, you only give him 2 draws, so it's not that bad. It's the same thing as like your 1-card Ryu-ge combo. So really, really good. You can just search this guy as part of your Warzone combo and still end on a really solid board there. Just a lot of really strong stuff with this card specifically. And I think people are really undervaluing this card. I've seen a lot of opinion that this card's really bad, and it's because it doesn't feel great in the Dino deck. And to be honest, I think the Jurrac cards are not particularly good in the Dino deck. I don't think they do what you want in that deck at all. I think they really do shine in this deck specifically because they fill in holes, which is something they don't do in the Dino strategy. After that is the... you could just say miscellaneous cards or the engine requirements for the list. We are on 2 Jurrac Megalo, 1 Jurrac Titano, 1 Miscellaneousaurus, and 1 Jurrac Impact. So I'll start with the Megalo, which is another new card. The Megalo can special summon itself if you control a dinosaur monster. It can discard 2 cards, including a Jurrac, to draw 2 cards. And then if it's destroyed, and this is the important effect, you can send a Jurrac monster from your deck or extra deck to the grave, which is important because you can send the new Synchro, and the new Synchro is a board wipe in the grave, which is really strong. So that sets this up on its own. Titano is just a level 9 that you have to play because you need a level 9. Misk is in here because if we open Fossil Dig or Warzone plus Stego, there are scenarios where we can just search this and ensure that our line is completely immune to basically any hand trap, which is really powerful because we don't have to trigger any effects outside of on the field. So there's no like thing they can hit with Misk. Misk also is just really hard to interact with. Misk is also the reason we're on the second Megalo, because hypothetically you could go like Misk, summon the second Megalo, and then you can use the Megalo when it's destroyed to send the Astero, and then the Astero is the board wipe engrave. The thing I didn't like about this is that the Megalo is a brick, and we just decided to play another brick, which felt really bad. And this never really came up for having a second one, which means I'm probably going to cut this for the third Anva. I think it is just a much better used slot. And the engine felt fine with just the one Megalo and the one Titano. Or it felt like it would have been fine with just the one Megalo and the one Titano. And then the Jurrac Impact, if we control a dinosaur monster with 2500 or more attack, it lets us board wipe, which we can set this off of the Astero, so it's super free. The reason I played this over the new field spell is the new field spell is a lot weaker to something like an X-Ryziel or just cards that interact with it in general. It's a lot harder to interact with set face-down cards than it is to interact with face-up cards. So that little difference made me want to play the Impact over it. Plus, if our opponent can play around it, we won't be able to get our Stero into grave, which is really important because that completely turns off the layers of our end board. So leaving it in the hands of my opponent to play into my interruptions feels really bad. I would much rather have agency over when I get to use my interruptions, and Impact gives me that agency. Now we can move on to the non-engine. For our power spells, we're on 1 Called by the Grave, 1 Triple Tactics Talents, and 3 Sales Ban. So these two are pretty self-explanatory. They're crazy. They're very strong. Good into hand traps. Yeah, you love to see them. Sales Ban is a really interesting card. I decided to play this because I wanted a card that felt very multi-purpose. I wanted like a good board breaker that also felt like it could interact well into... Like, it felt like it could do something going first, which it does. Going first, I can call like a draw unlock if my hand loses to draw, or I can call whatever hand trap I would hypothetically lose to, and this just deals with it no problem. Even if they don't have it, it's the fact that I can guarantee I will never lose to it that is just nice. And then going second, this card was great all day. Calling Murakumo off of this is really, really good because that card represents 2 points of interaction, especially if they don't end with it on the board, because then they can't go like prayers, summon it back, and do anything with it. The calling Detonator is the obvious use case for this, and thankfully there was no Ryziel at my locals, but the Sales Ban is hypothetically really, really good into Detonator, which is the main reason why we're on it, to be honest. And into Malice, I hypothetically could have used it to call some stuff, but I misplayed, but it's fine. Card is very good. Felt really good all day. We'll probably keep it in the list if I can. Now for the hand traps, we're on 3 Droll and Lockbird, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Molcharmy Foolos, and 1 Bestial Magnamut. So Bestial Magnamut is in here because it's like a starter and a non-engine card, which just gives it a lot more utility because it can obviously search our Mistva or our Anva, which is really nice. But the other 3 are mostly self-explanatory. Fu is like arguably the best hand trap in the game right now. It just covers so many matchups. Droll is also probably it's one of the best hand traps in the game right now. It just is mandatory to deal with the Mitsurugi decks that are running around, and a lot of Rogue too. Ash Blossom's the only card in here that I don't really like. This deck doesn't really lose to Molcharmies, so having it as an out to Molcharmies doesn't really make sense. Really, if I could, I would replace this with either Dominus Impulse, because you can totally get away with being under the Impulse lock. But especially, I would much rather be playing Molcharmy Parulia, because just having more Molcharmies right now feels really good, and that card is specifically really good into the Ryziel decks, which is something I'm very scared of. So, yeah, Ash, definitely not my first choice, but it's fine, and it served its purpose fine. Was a totally okay card all day. Would have been better to have one of those other cards, though, so if you have them, I would recommend playing them. And that is it for our 50-card main deck. Again, the only change I'd make to the main deck was honestly switching the second Megalo for the third Anva. That's about it. Now on to the extra deck. I'm not gonna lie, this extra deck is not very good. I very much just threw it together pretty haphazardly before the event, and most of it didn't come up. I'll talk about things that did if it mattered. We are on... So, for our Jurrac Synchros, we're on 3 Jurrac Meteor and 2 Jurrac Astero. So the 2 Astero matters because you want to summon one throughout your main combo, and then you want to have another one for if you pop Megalo, which will then trigger its effect to send Astero, which can then summon another Meteor. That being said, because you're only on 2 Astero, there is no world you ever need a 3rd Meteor. I don't know why I played 3. I realized it after. I was like, this card could have been any other card because I can't really make the 3rd copy. So it was basically just a dead card in my extra deck. Don't play 3 in this list. It's not good. Just play 2 for sure. Then on to the Ryu-ge extra deck stuff. We're on the 1 Verudrus, which of course makes sense. Card's crazy. You use it in your main combo all the time. And then 1 copy of Protector Whelp with the Destruction Swordsman and 1 copy of Hieratic Seals. There's some combos in the deck where you can like make a Protector Whelp with some cards. Like if you go if you do like the 1 card Warzone line that gets you to Mistfa, you would be ending on, you would make a Protector Whelp with your Hakva and the Megalo that you'd summon off of the Misk, and then you would link, after you do your Warzone Summon 3, you would link into Seals. So that's like the hypothetical line where this would come up. They were fine. I'd probably keep them in the list, because there was one point where they could have come up. I think the only reason they didn't is because I think I just killed my opponent on that turn, but if I wasn't able to kill them, Seals, I would have made Seals as like the follow-up. So it's a card that can come up. I would recommend keeping it in the list. It's not bad. Then on to cards that are relevant for cards in our side deck. We are siding Ultimate Slayers. So we have a myriad of targets because this extra deck is so loose. There is so little you actually need. 1 Herald, 1 Malong, 1 Aggregator, 1 Boroko Dragon, and 1 Topologic Trisbana. These were all fine. I never actually drew Ultimate Slayer, so none of these actually came up. But in theory, they were all pretty good. Not much to really say about them. Boroko Dragon is a fun tech for Malice specifically. It's also not terrible into like pure Mitsurugi. It lets you banish a dark monster on the field with 3,000 attack, along with the Boroko Engrave, to summon a topologic monster from your extra deck, which is why we're on the Trisbana. But that's really about it. It's not super interesting. We didn't play a fusion target because there's just not like real fusion decks running around, but you hypothetically could. You could throw it into Tis. And then we are on 1 Typhon and 1 SP. I think both of these came up. They're just like the best extra deck monsters you can generically throw into any deck. They're really good. Yeah, not much to say about them. It's SP and it's Typhon. They're iconic. They're classic. And then on to the side deck. We've got the mandatory Malice counters. 3 Molcharmy Meowls. And 3 Artifact Lancia. These, I don't remember if Lancia came up. It might have. I actually think the only time I cared was when I drew it against Orcust, and then I didn't end up actually using it because I needed a discard to stop the Murakumo effect that would like screw me over. But Meowls came up once. It got ashed against Malice, so you know these cards are good. They just didn't do a whole lot during the day, but they are good. Like they are huge blowouts. I do think you probably have to play them if you have them. If you don't have Meowls, Chaos Hunters, fine. It gets the job done. Then we're on, for some extra hand traps, we're on 3 Nibiru, and 3 infinite impermanents. The imperm and the nib are in here because, one, I wanted things I could side the Mulch Armies out for that had a little more versatility than these Solemn cards did, because I didn't think I needed that much help when I went first. So just having like imperms instead of the Fuas felt fine. And these were good. Just having more hand traps I can hypothetically play is really nice, especially since my non-engine count isn't super high. So it just gives me a wider variety of things, especially since post-side, I believe we go up to like 16 or 17 non-engine because we side out of some of our traps. But yeah, these were good. They came up for sure. Definitely would keep them in the extra deck, or the side deck. And then the last card is the 3 Ultimate Slayer. I don't think I ever drew this card, but in theory, it's very good. I would definitely keep it in the list. There were multiple matchups against, not even just meta decks, but Rogue too, where this card felt really, really good. If I had drawn it, this card would have been absolutely insane. It's also another detonator out, which is really important as well. So that's the list. I guess I can go into what I played against. I got a bye round 1, and then round 2 I played against, I believe it was, I played against the Orcust Mitsurugi Azamina deck, which I tied against, and then I played against Sword Soul Tenny, which I beat. Then I played against Regenesis Kashtira, which I beat. And then in top 4, I played against the Orcust Azamina Mitsurugi deck again and beat him that time. And then the last round, I played against Malice and beat them 2-0. So the deck felt great. I really would recommend trying it. I think it is the best Ryu-ge has ever felt. Really, really strong stuff. I could show a combo, but to be honest, it's just the standard Mistval line. And then you do the standard Jurrac line, which is just send Kaiba, summon your Titano and your Megalo, make a Stero, set the card, pass. Like, it's nothing crazy. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and try this out for yourselves. I really do recommend it. If you have any suggestions in the comments for how this list could be improved, I would love to hear them. I really am considering this deck for Nats, so I would love to hear any potential improvements or anything you guys might have to go off of. God, it would make me so happy to bring this deck to the national championships. I've been putting so much work into this deck since it came out, and it would be nice to put that work to good use. Anyway, I will see you all next time. Later.